Each year, more than 1,600 women in New York State are diagnosed with ovarian cancer. An estimated 11,500 women are living with ovarian cancer, and about 1,000 women in New York State die of the disease each year. This makes ovarian cancer the fifth most common cause of cancer death among women. Women who have been diagnosed with the disease may be especially challenged because most women are diagnosed at a late stage of the disease. However, whether they live another month, another year, or several decades, each woman becomes a survivor. In this program, some of these women will share their personal stories of living with ovarian cancer. Their stories demonstrate the tremendous strength and courage they have shown in their struggle against the disease, the fears and anxieties they have encountered, the challenges they have faced, and the hopes and dreams they have for the future. In addition, we will hear from family members who will talk about how they have dealt with life-altering changes as a result of their loved one having ovarian cancer. Survivorship.
I define survivorship as living with cancer and dealing with cancer each and every day after you've had the diagnosis, and dealing with coping with all the changes that occur because of the cancer.
I consider survivorship to have many definitions. Many people feel it's from the moment of diagnosis. Other people feel it's after treatment or after a specified number of years. I personally feel it's the moment someone feels that they are a survivor, that they go from feeling that they are a person with cancer to a survivor.
The key to successful survivorship, I think, is having a great support system. Usually I hear so much about how wonderful family and friends are, and being able to talk about it as they're going through the diagnosis, the treatment, and the follow-up is very, very important. I think that women who get involved in support groups really do find that that's very helpful. They come and it's a night that they can kind of let it all hang out and talk about whatever's on their mind with other women who absolutely understand where they're at.
Emotional and psychological challenges. Cancer survivors often progress through several emotional and/or psychological stages over time, including denial, anger, depression, and acceptance. The emotional and psychological support that a woman receives during this time can have a great impact on how she deals with the disease.
Ovarian cancer is unique because it's diagnosed so late. It's rarely diagnosed in an early stage. So that involves very intense treatment and therapy. So there's surgery, and then there's 6 to 8 treatments of chemotherapy. So it's a very intense process for the survivors to go through after diagnosis.
I mean, you have anger, you have grief, you probably have the, oh, I'm going to do everything I ever wanted to do in life before I die. And then I got over that.
As I've heard people on TV and famous people saying, oh, this cancer is such a gift. I have learned so much through this, and I keep thinking, where are they coming from? I mean, I don't understand personally, and I don't know, maybe I have to ascend higher and live longer and reach nirvana or something, I don't know. But I right now feel I can't be grateful for cancer. What I'm very grateful for is for my family, for the friends, for the support group. But the golden nugget with cancer, I can't wish it on anybody. I wish I didn't have it. The only thing I think the golden nugget is it has increased my faith, my spirituality. And, I pray every day for everyone in this group. It takes me 25 minutes to get through my prayers. But, that's what keeps me going.
I have a good prayer chain going for me, and I know that got me through it, and my family and my friends, and I didn't realize what they really meant to me. And some of them are, friends from high school even that I hadn't seen in years, and somehow heard what was happening to me, and they said, hey, what's going on, but we know you'll come through this and you'll beat this. And, you know, it was just everybody's upbeat feeling and attitude for me that really got me through it. But I get up every day and I think, okay, this is one more day I have, and so get with the program, girl.
People treat you like they're going to catch it. They don't really realize that, you know, you want to live every day and you want to be able to do fun things. And I think, you know, being able to communicate with people and talking and just, you know, doing as much as you can and living life, like you say, live life as best as you can.
I think a lot of times the doctors are so concerned with killing the cancer that they may not, well, they probably don't have time to figure out all of the other things that people need. I think some people need to talk to a psychologist or somebody to help them get through things. You know, if there are people who might become depressed. Right? It's a heavy duty, you know, when you're on chemo and your hair's falling out and you're feeling sick and you're feeling tired. And, you know, there's people around who can help you with those things.
The word hope has become my mantra too, that you can hope that the disease is cured, which is what a lot of our friends and family do. Just like you said, after you're done with chemo, oh, you're cured. And they don't get that same thing from my caregivers, from my doctors, and from the nurses and the nurse practitioners in the office that have insight into how to present hope to us in a way that we can take it away from there and say, well, I hope I survive till next year. I hope that I get to take a vacation, you know, before I get sick again.
You know, my experience with ovarian cancer has helped me a lot to look at the world differently. You know, once you are diagnosed with any cancer, I think, is you look at the world in a different way, and you change spiritually, and you become, you walk in the park now and you look at the trees and the sun, and you actually appreciate them when before nothing mattered. Also, I feel that now I'm able to help other women, and I do a lot of volunteer work with several organizations, and I just want to say that sharing my story with everyone, I hope that they remember me and remember the symptoms and remember, you know, that how I felt.
Support groups. Many of the women find that joining a support group helps tremendously. It gives them an opportunity to talk about their experiences with people who really understand firsthand what they are going through.
I didn't choose to get this disease, but as somebody said, I can choose how I'm going to deal with it. And I am trying to live each day, and we've had some really fun times. And I hope I can continue to do that. And thank you all for sharing, because it's good to hear. I'm sorry you all are here, but it is good to hear other people's stories and know that you're not alone.
I think some people have misconceptions about support groups. One gal who came to us had refused for a few years to try the support group because she said, oh, it's a lot of people just moaning and groaning and complaining about their disease. And her daughter told us that after she came to the group, she called up her daughter and said, I can't believe it. They make jokes, they laugh, they have a good time with each other. She just had no idea that it was a fun group to belong to, that, you know, not only do we give each other support, but we are irreverent. We joke about our hair, our lack of hair. We talk about very intimate issues, and we can cry, but we can also laugh a lot. And I think that's needed in an ongoing disease like this.
I wish I had been driven by a friend or something months ago when I was still in the middle of all the chemo, having all the side effects, having all the nausea. I had my friends in my support group, but they didn't know exactly what it was like, as you all do, to go through chemo, how you feel very energetic that night, and then you just crash 2 days later. They could sympathize and they could empathize, but they really didn't know what it felt like. And just, I'm going to be a regular because this is just wonderful. Thank you for welcoming me.
We're glad.
I, as a family member, felt powerless, you know, and I just said to her, you know what, Mom, I don't have cancer, and, you know, your husband died of pancreatic cancer, you know, a year and a half after having surgery, but you cannot be the only person in the Capital District who has cancer, whose husband died of cancer, and has kids that you're worried about, you know. And I had heard of the Elders Club, and I called here, and it just happened to be the second Wednesday of the month that they were like, oh yeah, we have an ovarian cancer support group. And I was like, fabulous. I called my mom, and I was like, we're going out tonight.
In addition to being involved here, I actually co-founded a group in the Glens Falls area. And what we do up there is, so many people are separated by distance. They can't come to a gathering like this. So a lot of our support actually is, we look at each other and ourselves more as resource people. We communicate by phone, by email. Sometimes it's personal visits, but it's the being able to know that there's somebody out there that I can reach out to. They may not have the answer, maybe they're just a good listener, or they might be able to help guide me to where I need to be.
One of the gals in our group said that she had told the nurse the side effects she was having, and then the nurse said, you know, well, yeah, and she said she had nausea. And we said to her, you know, the support group said to her, don't stand for that. Don't let somebody just say to you, yes, you have nausea. You make them give you a different medications, because there's a lot of them out there, and you want to make sure that they fix that, because they can probably stop the nausea by using a different drug. I think people need to know that from people who have been through it.
I think that someone made a comment about some family can hang in there and some can't. Some friends can hang in there and some can't. I got a lot of support when I was going through surgery and going through the chemos. And on my last day, and people kept asking me, so how are you, how are you? And once I finished chemo, you kind of stopped asking, because they thought, okay, well, you're cured now and you don't need the support. So I find out a group like this that knows that it's not all over for me because I finished chemo, that I can talk to and find out things from all the time.
As a Latina, we have a lot of family support and friends support, and we get all our support mainly from the family. But while I was in the hospital, and I was lucky, one of the social workers came by and gave me a little pamphlet, you know, from SHARE, and SHARE is breast and ovarian cancer support group. And I decided to join the support group because as much as your family gives you support, being with a support group is women that actually have gone through the same experience, and also talk about the different treatments, and you also share a lot of the experience. One of the things that I spoke with them about was that I met women that had stage 4 that were still living 10 and 12 years. So that gave me a lot of hope, and I recommend that to all the women to join a support group.
Family and friends. The changes brought about by a diagnosis of ovarian cancer have a significant impact on family relationships. Interactions with family members can run the gamut, from anger, fear, and guilt, to humor and a heightened sense of the value of time spent with one another.
Well, I can't do this alone. I can't get rid of this cancer by myself. Nothing I do to myself is going to make it go away. So I need to get some support from somewhere. And the best way to do that is to not be afraid to ask for support from your friends and your family. And if people want to do things for you, let them do it, because they feel like they're doing something for you, and if you're accepting of that, it's that's a very important part of it.
I was always the caretaker and taking care of everybody else. So it was when I got so sick and people had to, and I was surprised in some ways how they came up to the plate, and because I know, like, my brother when he was young and everything, and my mother was very sick when I was young, I was the person that had to spend more time going to the hospital or taking care of everything else, and he doesn't handle that type of thing very well, but he's also, he can handle like the finances and everything else, but it finally reached a point that we were sort of not talking, and my niece, who's his daughter, finally said, the reason you're not talking is that, because he wanted me to get all my financial things in order and make sure I had a will and all that, is that you're talking about her dying and she's talking about her living. And I've surprised even the doctors how well I'm doing compared to when they first saw me in the hospital. And now I said, well, despite my brother's taking it, I said, what do you expect? When that magical time that they said is up, that are you going to be disappointed if I'm still here?
My name's Bethany Schaefer, and I'm here in support of my mom, Nancy Como, who was diagnosed in June of 2004, stage 4. And I want to let everybody know here that sometimes I need this support group more than she does, because sometimes she could be like, had chemo today, I'm a little tired, but sometimes like, well, we have to go, Mom, because I really need to be here and to know that there are other women going through the same things that she goes through. And it's just, I feel so bad that she goes through it, but it's just, not that I want other people to go through it, but it's just nice to know that she's not the only one. And I thank everybody for sharing their stories, because it just makes us feel that we're not alone.
I have 4 children, and they're just wonderful. They take me to chemo. They call me every day. My son brings me vitamin water. They make sure I don't go to McDonald's. They're just always trying to do something, and they help me. And I have 2 great grandchildren, and I just feel I have to live for them. I want to see them grow a little older. So it's been family. And this one who told me, you're not going anywhere.
And I think the innocence of children, I was very apprehensive the first time that my granddaughters came to visit, because they were younger than my grandsons. And I was a little bit worried about not having any hair on my head and what they would think. And because they're both very deep thinkers. So the day came, they came over to visit, and I thought, oh dear, here we go. But they came in the house, and I said, then they looked at me, and I said, well, what do you think of Nene? And they said, oh yeah, well, you don't have any hair. But did you make any brownies for us? So life does go on, and I intend to make the best of it, and I'm going to just take every day that I have, and as many days as my feet hit the floor, that's good for me.
My father had written, he said, for some reason they like to put statistics in the negative, and in his case, laryngeal cancer, he said, laryngeal cancer patients tend not to live 5 years, but you know what? There's also an awful lot of them that do, and therefore I better be prepared not to leave this earth too prematurely. And he said, the statistics for ovarian cancer are also very sobering, but you are a sample of one. Statistics don't apply to individuals. You will go into remission, you'll be cured, or whatever, independent of what 1,000 cases show. That was the turning point for me. That's what gave me the hope.
There's something about having spent, that many hours in a hospital and that many hours tending someone where it becomes, it just binds you with a lot of other people. there's lessons that you get that are kind of pounded into you after a while. And one of the things that's happened to me is that I'm just much more aware of empathy, of illness, of people who are dying, people who are going through grieving. It all seems to me like, you know, a whole part of life now that was closed before that's wildly opened up now.
It was 17 months. There was no time between the chemotherapy and the end. She went, I think, about 2 weeks after the chemotherapy was rechecked, and it was back in full force. There was no remission whatsoever. So she went straight from the chemotherapy into hospice. I didn't have any choice except to try to be the calming influence and, you know, provide ballast, which was the role I was in for the next 17 months. You can't be falling apart and pretending that it's all okay. I needed to just be serious and go about gathering information and reassuring her and finding out as much as I could.
The support from our community, not only our faith community, but also the people in our town. We lived in our town for 37 years, and people were just incredibly wonderful. We had meals every single day for 4 months, and we finally said, why don't you cut back a little bit, because we were giving food away, actually. And I have 4 children, but I have 1 in Nepal, 2 in Colorado, and 1 in San Francisco. So they did come, but they weren't there for us, like if your kids are in the neighborhood. So our friends in our church community just took over, and not only for me, but for my husband, who really was feeling it. Sometimes I felt sorry for him. I think it was harder on him sometimes than it was on me. So the guys would come over and take him out for a beer, and you know, they could talk, and I just so appreciated that. And the fact that people stuck through this whole process it's still amazing to me. So that's really what has helped me.
Employment, financial, and legal issues. Because of the life changes that accompany an ovarian cancer diagnosis, there is often a need to adjust professional work schedules and other ongoing commitments. Some women stop working altogether. Others reduce their work hours on a temporary basis, and a number are able to eventually return to work full-time.
For me, the decision to go back, my family was like against it and said, well, why don't you take the opportunity to retire early and that. But I felt that by not going back to work, that the disease would have won. And I couldn't do that.
Absolutely.
That as long as I was feeling up to it and capable, that I needed to go back to work. I wasn't ready to retire. I ended up calling up one of my bosses and said, is there a position for me to come back to? And he said, yes, up to a certain point they had to keep my position open, and in my particular unit they were doing that for me. So there are legal things that they have to, and there's also legal things as far as what they're not supposed to ask you. Like, I've been more than upfront, and as far as, well, I've gone to treatments and everything, but hearing even from like the support group, not everybody has had that same sort of experience, and I sometimes wonder, am I saying too much? Am I saying things at work that I shouldn't say as far as my treatments and that, and is it going to some point jeopardize my job, even though legally they're not supposed to? It is a concern at times.
Like you, I was anxious to get back to work and show them that I could do the same job that I did before cancer. And although my employer did the legal in the right thing by making accommodations for me when I had to go to the doctor so often, but my coworkers were only patient up to a very short point, and then they were frustrated with my special accommodations. They were cold shoulder me. It was so that I was eating lunches alone, and there would be little, conversations without me. And at one point, I had gotten so angry about the comments about, anybody knows that. Oh, I can't understand how some people can be so stupid. And I had explained to them about the chemo brain, or the cognitive thinking, where you can't find the right word, or you're dyslexic, but they just weren't getting it. And so I had taken that to my employer, finally, after weeks and weeks of what I felt like was harassment. And I really didn't get this satisfaction that I wanted. People just weren't understanding. I even printed out things from the internet talking about the different side effects that affects you after chemo. So I left, and I actually found a job in healthcare as a result of all my connections and so much time that I spent there. And I am so much happier doing healthcare and helping people, and being able to walk around the halls and see smiling faces, and instead of in a corporate sales office that seems to be so competitive.
My mother taught me a lot through her illnesses. And so as I moved into mine, I already had a healthcare proxy in place. I had a living will in place. And I was really relieved that I had done that, because those pressures when you're sick and having to deal with that when you're sick are just horrendous.
She continued to work until 3 or 4 months before her death. She set up some rules for work that because of the chemotherapy, she couldn't be exposed to anything contagious, so she made people stop at the door to her office, and she continued to work. And the rules she had were no discussion of cancer, and just carry on as usual at work.
I don't know this woman really well. I met her when I was at the oncologist's office, and she was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. She did not have insurance. It was recommended that she have the surgery and that she have the chemotherapy. She found out in a general way how much it was going to cost, and she couldn't do it. And I was getting my bills having to pay a copay, period, $20 copay. And I finally added up all my bills, and it was in the thousands and thousands of dollars. And I said to my husband, I wish I could find that woman, and I wish I could give her something financially to help her to have her treatments, because she said, I cannot have the treatment. And I'm just appalled. And I don't know what you can do.
We continued to play music throughout her illness. There were a couple of lulls in it. But she came back real strong at the end. In the last year of her life, we collaborated, and we were working once a week at a local restaurant close to our house. We only lived 2 blocks away, and she liked to go to bed early, so we would work 7 to 9. That was the time that our little soirees would take place. And once she just showed up and did an entire evening in her bathrobe, in her pajamas and bathrobe, and there was like Japanese and Dutch tourists just there, and just kind of going, "Oh, this is what they do here, this is like a standard New York thing."
Quality of life, living an active and productive life. Most survivors find it necessary to rest more than they ever did before, but given enough rest, most survivors find it important to engage in activities they enjoy.
I love to work out in my garden, and sometimes if I can't do that, and I just sit and I think, all right, you need to take some time for yourself. If it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and just shut yourself down, let your mind wander, or do whatever you want. And just think about whatever you want. Think about, years gone by, think about what you want to do, just, kind of veg out. And I do that, and I get my bottle of water, and I drink my water, and I veg out, and 10-15 minutes, it's great.
And for me, going forward is being positive. Just like one day at a time, doing one thing at a time. And I take great joy right now in doing what I call random acts of kindness to my friends. They might mention they want a magazine or something, but they don't want to spend the money for a subscription. So I get a subscription for them and send it to them anonymously.
If I'm in negative situations, I have courage to get up and walk away sometimes because I don't want to deal with that, and I don't think it's good for me, and I'm going to be selfish. But there are also days when I decide that I'm going to sit down and read a book. I'm not going to, go out and do something important. I'm just going to do something for me. I think survivorship, it isn't bad to be a little selfish now and then, but I also to me, I want to do something that makes a difference for the people who haven't survived.
I used to be very controlling and wanted to fix everything that everybody else did and have them do it the same way I did. And I found that the same thing in the great scheme of things, and in fact I just wrote that, I think, in a letter to someone the other day, that, how important is it? People will ask me questions that before I'd be adamant and have to tell my side of the story, and I'd say, it really doesn't matter to me.
I kept telling my husband, if I ever get to the point with this disease where I either have the dry heaves or I'm in pain, I can't function, my quality of life is not good. I said, we're going to pretend that I'm hanging a picture on the wall and oops, the hammer fell on her head.
We talk about hair loss a lot, and we laugh about hair loss a lot.
It's hard not having hair, neither.
Amen to that. I think the difference is whether it's your choice or not. The people who shave their head and it's their choice, okay. But if we're bald and it was just one more indignity in this whole process of, feeling crappy and all that, it's a little different. But the more times you go through chemo and the more times you lose your hair, it gets easier to take.
I'm still not signing up for it.
Well, I don't think I'd ever voluntarily do it.
Chic. Yeah, that would be cooler than the way you did when it's really hot out. Yeah, I like that. Good, thanks.
You're welcome. The only other things I really worried about, to be very honest, going into surgery were that whether I'd use hormone replacement therapy or not, because there was even then a controversy about it. And the other one, quite frankly, because you hear so much about it and people don't want to talk about it, would my sex life be different quantitatively or qualitatively? I have 3 daughters at the time when they're 20s, and they very affectionately call their father and I the perverts. And I'm sort of happy to report it's still true. I don't know how we leave the whole issue of sexuality and intimacy out of discussions of ovarian cancer, but it often gets left out. It was one of the things I thought about because I read and I was concerned, and there was reason for concern. I had a dear friend tell me very shortly after, while I was still having chemo, I think, well, I'm so glad you're doing well, but you've been compromised sexually. Your sexuality has been compromised, that's what he said. And I smiled and I looked at him and I said, well, please don't tell Kwame that. That's my husband. I said, he doesn't know yet. And for me, it certainly has been, there are some challenges. I don't use hormone replacement therapy now. There's vaginal dryness and other issues. But the truth is, your sexual life after cancer is generally very similar to what it was before cancer. If it was healthy before, you're going to find a way to make it healthy again. And if it wasn't healthy, the cancer is not going to make it better. I think women are beginning to realize this is a part of who I am. I don't pretend that I'm not intellectual, that I don't have that side. I don't pretend that I don't have other parts to me, and this is a part of who I am. So I'm not ashamed of my sexuality. My children tease me, tease their father and I about this pervert thing. It's lovely, and they know it's lovely, and we know it's lovely.
Complementary therapies. Some women find help in their healing process with complementary therapies, such as acupuncture, massage, or healing touch.
Healing touch is an energy-based therapy, which is done always out of our heart center of unconditional love, and it is done with the intention for the person's highest good, so that we're always in a state of allow. We're allowing the energy to do the work to come through our hands and from our own higher source and the God of our understanding, our universal life force, however anyone sees that, and it actually promotes healing, which is helping a person to be made whole in mind, in body, and in spirit.
The results that I get is a sense of peace and well-being. And what it does is it just makes you feel totally relaxed, aligned, I guess is the way it feels, like I'm aligned, and I'm ready to start my next chemo session. And I would do this after every chemo, about 3 or 4 days after chemo, because that's when I felt the worst, was after the chemo, was 3 or 4 days later. When I got done with the chemo and done with the healing touch, everything would be flowing nice and even and through from the top of my chakra down to the last one. So it's a very calming feeling, and I envision healing going on while it's happening to me, and I think that has a lot to do with it too, is imagining what is.
I see a number of people, as many practitioners do, people with cancer, ovarian, breast cancer, other kinds of cancer, and healing touch actually brings a great sense of hope. Provides an experience of relaxation, stress reduction. Pain reduction is excellent for people who are in chemotherapy and radiation therapy, and even many years after people have actually are in a state of recovery, still come back for healing touch to maintain that sense of balance and harmony energetically in mind, body, and spirit.
Alternative medicines add that extra safeguard, I think. You're not ignoring the tried and true ways of medicine, you're just adding to it. It just helps you have a little extra to help you heal, and it helps your attitude, which is what helps you heal. That's a big part of healing, is your attitude, your positive thinking, and just being open to new ideas to find the healing in yourself.
Some of the complementary therapies that the women do is acupuncture, and they do that in lieu of pain medication. Sometimes they've found that it will take away some of the discomforts that they have, and they prefer it because it doesn't make them sleepy or uncomfortable. And they swear by a few of the acupuncturists in the area, and they all share their stories.
I really went to get the acupuncture to prevent the neuropathy, but I do find if I have chemo on Monday, I try to schedule the acupuncture on Tuesday, and my crashy period is Wednesday into Thursday. And the acupuncture, I don't know if it's psychological, if there's really something to the acupuncture, but it helps with that crashy period. It really, I don't know, I'm telling you, it's better.
That's one. Reiki therapy is another big one that they will frequently do, and reflexology is another one that a lot of them do, where they do the foot massage. Those are the main ones that they talk about. Sometimes massage, but they have to be careful with massage. You have to be careful with all these therapies. You really shouldn't go ahead and do them without discussing it with your provider.
Dealing with loss. Probably the hardest part of survivorship is losing someone you know or love with ovarian cancer.
I'm glad y'all came tonight, and I just wanted to say the first thing that I think that we can't let go is the fact that we've lost Laura yesterday. So I brought a card for all of us that we could sign and give to her husband, and Caring Together will be sending flowers, and the services will be Friday and Saturday, is my understanding.
5 to 8 on Friday evening, and the Mass will be on Saturday morning.
I think that she knew that you were all here with her. She said that so many times. She really did when I went to visit her in the hospital, and she was just so appreciative of the calls and the cards and the everything. And anyways.
I'm Diana Burns. I was diagnosed in July 2003, stage 3C, and actually I joined this group with Laura in February 2004. And she joined the group the same time that I did, and we became friends. And all I can say is that I draw my strength from all of you women, because I thought I was a dead duck. And I remember the ladies going around the room, and it's too bad Jenny's not here, but I was hearing I'm stage 1, and I'm like, what are you doing here? Oh, I'm stage 1. What are you doing here? And then there was Jenny, and she's like, I'm stage 4. And then I sat up, and I'm like, whoa, she's stage 4, and she's still alive. So it just, I don't know, just I draw strength. Watching you ladies fight the way you fight just gives me courage. And actually, I think Laura had a lot of courage, and she just, I don't know, we never expected her to go this quickly, and it just really affected me yesterday when she died. So, but I'm doing all right. Relatively speaking to you ladies, geez, I'm doing great.
Marcia's repeated goal during all of the chemotherapy and trying to get better, when she realized she wasn't going to get better, it was going to be terminal, and then it was all about how much time do I have and can I get a remission. Her goal was to see Andy she wanted to see him on his first day of college. She wanted to drop him off at college and know he was there and going to be, commencing the next chapter of his life. She, of course, never made it that long, and after a while she settled for seeing him graduate high school. She wasn't able to attend but she didn't see him graduate high school either, actually. She died in March, and he graduated in May. She had to satisfy herself with the idea that it was a sure thing at that point. And but earlier she had talked about dropping him off at college and hugging him and kissing him and crying, happy crying. And of course, when the day came and I brought him to college, she wasn't there to do that. His roommate was there with a large family, and his mother was hugging and kissing and happily crying. And then she turned to me and said, well, I guess you must have already said your goodbyes. And in fact, we had, but it was just, the way a father does, with a handshake and a hug and no tears. And then I got in the car and drove back on the 4-hour ride from New Hampshire, and for the very first time I sobbed all the way back. It struck me that I couldn't be there was part of parenthood that I couldn't do for him.
There is some really good conventional wisdom on grieving, what it means to go through the first year. Because the first year, you really are just processing, and you go through all the anniversaries in the first year. So you have the anniversary of this, blah, blah, blah. You have your wedding anniversary, birthdays, all those events where the presence of that person is conspicuously absent. So you got to go through that year. And then there's a year, another year where it just still feels unreal. And there's a third year where it's sort of, there's still some kind of general reorientation going on. You're expected to get on with your life. There's that, that very much that sentiment, if you languish too long with it, I needed a lot of time just to kind of work through the trauma of just the details of her illness. Just that there were so many moments that were tough, so many moments in which things kind of fell apart. It wasn't a quick thing, So a lot of that lingered, and writing the book has helped me a great deal.
before she was a lawyer, she was a social worker, and she used to be a social worker in an intensive care nursery where there was a lot of misery and a lot of death. And she had learned that you cannot tell anybody how to grieve. You can't expect anybody to grieve in a particular way, and you simply can't have any expectations that certain types of grieving is okay and others are not. She said some people laugh, some people smile, some people are in denial, some people act stunned, some people fall apart, and everybody grieves absolutely in their own way, and it's just wrong to try to judge anybody's way of grieving. And then in her last few days, she brought that up again with me and repeated it, and she pointed a finger at me and said, "And don't you judge yourself either for the way you grieve." And that was something that I found very helpful later on. It was just really a gift to me that I did not have to feel like I was doing anything the right way or the wrong way, or have any regrets about my own feelings. Looking inside and saying, well, maybe I'm not reacting enough, or maybe I'm reacting too much. And I was relieved of all of that. I could just react. For all of this, I don't think I can give anybody any advice. Maybe pass along my wife's advice. Don't judge yourself about how you're reacting to these things, because everybody's got to do it differently, and you just have to be the person you are, and nobody else can judge you either.
Enjoying the moment. No matter how short or long of a lifetime anyone has, there's one thing survivors have learned, and that's to treasure the moment.
Don't let the get you down.
That's right.
And that's just what it is.
It seemed like everything just went into place. You think cancer's going to be the worst thing that happens to you. And if you're open to all the good things that happen to you, it's amazing.
I know one thing from having cancer is that I never take anything for granted anymore. Simple things like I had to relearn how to walk. You just look at each day as a new opportunity. And I kind of took things for granted before, and that's just changed my whole perspective on how I just, every day is a new opportunity to do something new, to grow, to have a wonderful day, have fun, or whatever.
One morning she was just too sick. She had just, was just dehydrated from dry heaving for 3 days or whatever. And I wheel her into to the bathroom. And so I'm sitting there holding her IV bag while she's sitting on the stool and, trying to go. And I don't know why, but I start to sing this song. And I only know the first few lines of the song, but it's, I've grown accustomed to your face. And it's the song. And I sang it in the room because I liked the way it sounded with the tiles, and it sounded this beautiful echoey thing, and my voice sounded very rich. And then I tried to say the next line, and I forgot it, and she answered it. And the next thing you know, we were singing a duet there, and it was really just very, very sweet. And, because we didn't really ever sing together, but we played together. So it was just one of those moments. And there were many, many such moments.
Surviving. The journey for women with ovarian cancer and their family members is challenging. However, by recognizing and addressing these key survivorship issues, we as family members, friends, and healthcare professionals can improve the quality of life for women with ovarian cancer.
I've been very, very fortunate in these 3 years. I've tolerated the chemotherapy well and have felt pretty good most of the time, for which I'm very, very grateful. I'd be even more grateful not to have ovarian cancer and not to have had 3 recurrences in 3 years, but I'm grateful for having had 3 good years and hope for some more time as well.
It means to persist stubbornly, and that's who this group of women are. They're stubborn, they're activists, they're out there. we don't come here just to, for ourselves, but they go out and they teach other people and take time out and make videos and do whatever because they want to get the word out to other people, and they're going to survive because they are stubborn and they will persist stubbornly.
To me, what keeps me going is my ability to get out and connect with people and make a difference in the cancer field as a survivor.
I'd like to encourage primary care providers to just put ovarian cancer on their list of differential diagnoses, because when women come complaining of, I did not have the abdominal bloating, which is like the first thing that you think of ovarian cancer. I just had chronic fatigue, and I had frequency of urination. But I remember going to my primary care doctor and saying, geez, I'm just so exhausted, I'm so tired. And she said, well, you're getting close to menopause. And so, of course, you're working, you're not sleeping, you got 5 stepchildren, of course, you're a woman, you're tired. And so, I think, unfortunately, younger women, I don't know if this is true, I haven't done an official study, but my gut feeling is that because I was diagnosed at age 46, typically ovarian cancer is an age 50s, 60s, an older woman's type of disease. So I don't think primary care doctors necessarily think of ovarian cancer.
They say this is a disease that whispers. There are symptoms. I want to shout from the rooftops so that other people know what the symptoms are and get it as well known as breast cancer so that we do something to fight this.
I feel that now I'm able to help other women, and I do a lot of volunteer work with several organizations, and I just want to say that sharing my story with everyone, I hope that they remember me and remember the symptoms and remember, that how I felt.
Find people who make you feel better, who assist you in recovering and assist you in thriving, because life doesn't end with ovarian cancer.
Well, when you first get the diagnosis, everyone thinks, cancer, I'm going to die. I would get depressed and I would have crying bouts where I'd say, well, geez, how would you feel if you knew you were going to die in 5 years? And it made me really think about, okay, yeah, what if I was going to die in 5 years? What would I want to do if I was going to die in 5 years? And so things like changing my job, not being in a job that I don't like, not living where you don't like, doing a hobby that you said you'd always like to do. And so going from the hospital bed to a motorcycle seems really extreme, but you pick things that you say, well, I couldn't do it before, now I can do anything, because if I only have 5 years to live, I'm going to do what I want to do.